You're going to hear some of them in tomorrow's podcast. But for the breaking news podcast tonight, we're going to bring in Mike Davis, the founder of one of the most influential groups that vets judges and polices judicial conduct, the Article 3 Project. Then we'll bring in Hans von Spakovsky. He's at the Heritage Foundation and is an expert on federal election law, which was being alleged is the motive for the conspiracy. Both of them are going to weigh in right after this commercial break. Folks, if you owe back taxes, fair warning, you're not going to like this. The IRS is mailing millions of pay-up letters. Millions, I say. Then it's up to the 20,000 new IRS enforcement agents to find you. Why the IRS targets you and not millionaires? Well, because millionaires have tax lawyers. You don't, you'll pay up. Plus interest and penalties. You need Tax Network USA, and you need them now. Tax Network USA has brilliant war room strategies to solve your IRS problems quickly and in your favor. Like a preferred direct line to the IRS. They know which agents to deal with and who to avoid. It's not all bad news for you because Tax Network USA learned of a special limited time IRS offer. They're willing to waive $1 billion in penalties if you qualify. So schedule your free confidential consultation to see if you qualify for this limited time IRS penalty canceling offer. To do so, call 1-800-245-6000. That's 1-800-245-6000 or visit tnusa.com/justnews. That's tnusa.com/justnews. Let me tell you, folks, if there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics are pre-alcohol, prebiotic drinks that are the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after a night of drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produce an enzyme to break the byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best in the morning. Vacations, weddings, birthdays, reunions, you name it, we've got you covered. There's so much going on, so get the most out of your spring plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/justnews to get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code JUSTNEWS at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/justnews and then use that promo code JUSTNEWS at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and all of our good times. Joining us right now, two of my favorites. Mike Davis, founder and president of the Article 3 Project, and a former member of the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity under President Trump, and senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Hans von Spakovsky. Hans, great to have you here. Mike, great to have you here. Hans, I want to start with you. I think the first question a lot of people will have tonight, they kind of expected this verdict with the New York jury is there anything that can happen in the court system to set aside this verdict before Election Day? What do you think?
Yes, but that means that the New York appeals court has to put this all on an expedited schedule. You'll recall that the U.S. Supreme Court did exactly that when there was an appeal by the Trump campaign from the decision of the Colorado State Supreme Court disqualifying him from the ballot. The Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, moved with, frankly, unprecedented speed to take up the case, to hear the case, and to issue an order in that case. And as you know, Trump won that. The New York Appeals Court here needs to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see and maybe a possibility. Mike, I want to go to you and just get your top line reaction. You have predicted this for quite a long time. Did the jury miss an opportunity to reinstill or restore a little bit of trust in the system?
I would say this: today's partisan, corrupt, and rigged verdict from this Biden trial has guaranteed that President Trump will win in a landslide on November 5th, 2024. These are third world tactics that Joe Biden has deployed against President Trump, his leading presidential rival, because Joe Biden fears that Trump's going to beat him like a drum on November 5th. I always said before today's verdict that Trump would win by 1 or 2 points I would say after this, it's going to be a landslide, especially if this corrupt Democrat Biden donor Judge Juan Merchan, whose daughter Lauren is raising millions of dollars off of this corrupt, rigged partisan trial, even thinks about trying to put Trump in prison, or even thinks about trying to prevent Trump from campaigning for the presidency. This is going to backfire and backfire spectacularly. This is actually a criminal conspiracy to violate President Trump's civil rights under 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242. U.S. Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio wrote a very good criminal referral that he sent to the Biden Justice Department that should be waiting there on day one on January 20th, 2025 for the Trump 47 Justice Department.
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, I want to start with what are the best grounds for appeal? Is it the jury instructions that Judge Merchan gave? Is it some of the flaws in the indictment stringing together misdemeanors into felonies by attaching them to a federal case? And also extending the statute of limitations, blaming it on COVID. Mike, let me start with you. What do you think are the best grounds for appeal?
Well, there are so many, it's just hard to begin. I would say that the first one is there's no crime here. And they waited until after this multi-week trial to even tell the criminal defendant what the legal allegations he was supposed to defend himself in that prior trial. He had no opportunity to defend himself. And then this judge instructed the jury that they did not have to unanimously agree what the legal allegations were, that they didn't have to unanimously agree what the second supposed crime was that turned this bookkeeping misdemeanor. It's not a misdemeanor. A legal expense is a legal expense, but we'll play along. This bookkeeping misdemeanor in Trump's private books in 2017 that somehow was a business bookkeeping misdemeanor, and somehow that business bookkeeping misdemeanor in his private books from 2017 affected the 2016 election. This judge instructed the jury they didn't have to unanimously agree what that second crime was that transformed that from a bookkeeping misdemeanor into 34 felonies. We also had this judge was corrupt. You had this former Clinton judge from the Southern District of New York, a federal judge, go on Caitlin Collins' show on April 5th, 2024 on CNN and said that this judge had to recuse under New York statute because Judge Juan Merchan's adult daughter, Lauren Merchan, was raising millions of dollars off of this criminal prosecution, requiring his recusal. What was Judge Merchan's response? He expanded his illegal, unconstitutional gag order on Trump, and Trump and his campaign could not even mention Lauren Merchan's name or Matthew Colangelo's name getting deployed from the Biden Justice Department, or respond to Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen, these disgraced people who have changed their story many times. Michael Cohen, a serial perjurer, convicted felon, admitted to embezzling, disbarred attorney. He went on TikTok. Stormy Daniels, this bimbo porn star, went on Twitter. They're both raising money, trashing Trump online. Trump can't respond. This jury selection process was rigged. It's already 87% Biden voter. And then Merchan and Colangelo and Bragg further rigged the jury selection process to bounce the three people in Manhattan who follow Trump on Truth, but they didn't bounce people who follow Biden on social media. There are so many constitutional problems with this jury verdict, and this conviction that's going to come from this jury verdict, and this sentence that's going to come from this conviction, that there is no doubt that the appellate courts, even if it requires the Supreme Court of the United States, that the appellate courts will reverse this. The issue is I doubt it will get reversed before November 5th, 2024, and that is exactly what Biden is counting on. They want to call Trump a convicted felon to interfere in the election.
Yeah, and they did that already in the statement tonight. Hans, just real quickly, your thoughts on the appeal?
Well, Mike covered a lot of the issues. The real thing for people to understand is that, look, the U.S. Supreme Court has said on numerous occasions that it is a violation of a defendant's substantive due process rights if he is not fully informed of all the charges against him. You go back and read the original indictment. None of that indictment does not include anything about all the other crimes that all of a sudden the prosecution started talking about, and that the judge gave instructions on violations of tax law, violations of a state law on changing the outcome of an election, violations of the Federal Election Campaign Act. And one of the biggest errors the judge made was, here he is talking about, and the prosecution is claiming, that this should have been listed as a campaign-related expense, right? And yet they wouldn't allow testimony by one of the leading, if not the leading, expert in the country on campaign federal campaign finance law, and yet the jury is supposed to figure that out on their own without any of that. It's just one mistake, one deliberate, intentional error after another.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. Hans, if I could, I want to stay with you. They say that the best defense is offense, but unfortunately in this situation, President Trump is forced to play defense. On the offensive side of the ball, is there some type of case that could be brought with a gaggle of states' attorneys general, something to play offense to go against what is happening, something in the realm of election interference, election meddling? Is there any type of case that could be put together to get back on offense?
Boy, I wish there was, but I think that's a pretty tough case to make. I have seen that, Representative Stefanik has sent letters about the ethical problems of this particular judge, but it's hard for any attorney generals from any other states to really do anything about this. The path is going to be an appeal in the New York courts. If that's not successful, then an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, because the violations that occurred in this particular case violate the federal Constitution and the substantive due process rights of a defendant.
Yeah. Mike, I want to turn to sentencing. If you had to guess now, based on the record that's in the court trial, what will Judge Merchan consider for sentencing? He certainly rushed it. He couldn't wait to get it ahead of the Republican nominating convention. But what do you think will happen?
Well, this judge, like you said, he set the sentencing hearing for like 4 days before the Republican National Convention starts. Obvious election interference by this judge, continued election interference by this judge. His daughter Lauren's going to raise a ton of money. She'll raise millions of dollars. She'll get her cut from this. And so I hope that Judge Juan Merchan's very happy that he's helping his daughter raise a lot of money off these Republic ending tactics by these Biden Democrats. I think this judge has shown that he's corrupt, he's partisan, he's biased, and don't be surprised. I've said all along, don't be surprised when they find him guilty. And people thought, they laughed about that they thought there's no way that could happen. Don't be surprised if this judge tries to put President Trump in prison, or at a minimum tries to put him in some sort of home confinement and try to keep him off the campaign trail.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to pay some bills in a few moments. But Hans, I wanted to ask you before we let you guys go. We had on Alan Dershowitz a few days ago and asked him about the lasting impact, the repercussions on our justice system. And he indicated that, especially with a guilty verdict, that there would be dire repercussions for our system of justice. That's supposed to be the gold standard. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, look, I just had a colleague come back from a convention in Europe, and there were a lot of lawyers and individuals there from all around the world, particularly from a lot of countries in South and Central America and elsewhere. You know what the reaction was to what was going on here? Well, the United States has finally started acting the way our governments act, which is the government using its law enforcement power to go after its political opponents. So we really are now looking like a third world country, and New York might as well rename itself Venezuela.
What powerful words. Mike Davis, Hans von Spakovsky, on a day like today, I can't thank you enough. We couldn't have had two better minds to kick off such an important conversation. Thanks for joining us.